The last memory I have of my mother is her voice. Not her face. Not her hands. Just her voice, low and certain, the kind of voice that makes you believe God personally assigned it to deliver truth, saying, "Amara, you are worth more than they will ever understand." I was 7 when she said that. I was 24 when a man I had never met paid $2 million to prove her right. My name is Amara Osei. I grew up in Accra, Ghana, in a house that had more love than money and more laughter than furniture. I had a degree in economics that I hadn't used yet, a mouth that moved faster than my brain, and a future that was supposed to look completely different from this. But my uncle, the man my father trusted with his dying breath, sold me. Not because I did something wrong. Not because I deserved it. He sold me because he owed a debt to the most dangerous criminal organization in Seoul, South Korea, and I was the only collateral he had left. I didn't know any of this when they put me on that private jet. I thought I was going to a job interview. I know. But they told me it was an executive assistant position in Seoul, and they gave me a contract with my name printed on it and everything. My uncle was standing there smiling. I thought, finally something is going my way. I wore my good blazer. The burgundy one. I was so proud of that blazer. By the time I landed in Seoul and realized no job interview ends with armed men in black suits walking you into a penthouse at 2 in the morning, it was far too late. And that is where I met him. Kwon Jae-won. CEO of Kwon Industries, publicly. Head of the Kwon Crime Syndicate, privately. The most terrifyingly beautiful human being I had ever seen in my 24 years of life on this earth. He was standing at the floor-to-ceiling window, his back to me, looking out over the Seoul skyline like the city owed him something. Dark suit. Broad shoulders. Hands in his pockets. Completely still, the way a storm is still right before it destroys everything. I stood there in my burgundy blazer, with my one carry-on bag, and I thought, I am going to die tonight. But then he turned around. And the first thing he said to me, not welcome, not sit down, not any of the terrifying things I had built up in my head on that entire flight over. The first thing Kwon Jae-won said to me was, "You wore a blazer." And God help me, I said, "and you wore a suit. We can both observe the obvious. What else can you do?" The man blinked. His bodyguard actually choked. And Kwon Jae-won, the most feared man in all of South Korea, stared at me for 5 full seconds like no one had ever spoken to him like that in his entire life. Then he said, very quietly, "You are a guest here. Not a prisoner." And I said, "So I can leave?" He looked at me for a long moment. Then he turned back to the window. "Get some rest," he said. "We will talk in the morning." That was not an answer. But it was the beginning of everything. Now before I continue, I need to stop right here and talk to you for 2 seconds. My mum, my actual mother, looked at this video before I posted it and told me, with full confidence, that this story cannot reach 10,000 views or get 1,000 subscribers. She said it with her whole chest. I need you to prove her wrong right now. If you are watching this and you are not subscribed yet, click that subscribe button immediately. It is free. It takes 1 second. And it will personally humble my mother, which is something I have been trying to do for years. Hit the like button too, because this story is about to go places that will make your jaw drop. And drop a comment right now telling me where in the world you are watching from. Ghana? Nigeria? Kenya? South Korea? UK? USA? Wherever you are, put it in the comments. I want to see how far this reaches. Now, let's get back to Amara. Because things are about to get very interesting. I expected a cage. What I got was a bedroom the size of my entire apartment back in Accra, with a bed so soft I genuinely considered the possibility that I had died on that plane and this was heaven's waiting room. The sheets were white. The pillows were cold. And for 1 whole minute, I just stood in the middle of that room and turned in a slow circle with my mouth open like a tourist. Then I caught myself and said out loud to nobody, "Amara. Focus. You have been kidnapped. This is not a hotel." But it looked like a hotel. It smelled like a hotel, expensive and clean with something warm underneath, like cedarwood, like something that had no business being comforting but was. I did not sleep. I sat on the edge of that beautiful bed in my burgundy blazer and I made a plan. I was going to be calm. I was going to be smart. I was going to find out exactly what this man wanted, negotiate my way out, and be back in Accra within the week. I had a plan. I am always better with a plan. At 7 in the morning, a soft knock came at the door. I opened it ready for anything. Bodyguards, instructions, a formal list of rules, something terrifying. Instead, it was Kwon Jae-won, holding a tray with food on it. Real food, jollof-style rice, fried plantain, scrambled eggs. And I stood there staring at it because there was absolutely no explanation in the universe for why the head of a Korean crime syndicate was standing at my door at 7 a.m. holding a breakfast tray with West African food on it. How? I started. I had my chef research, he said simply. I did not know what you preferred, so I had him make several options. This one looked most familiar. He said it the way someone might mention the weather. Completely calm. Like this was normal. Like men who owned half of Seoul personally delivered culturally considerate breakfasts to women they had purchased every single morning. I stared at him. He stared back. Are you going to take it, he said, or should I stand here longer? I took the tray. And then, because I could not help myself, because my mouth has never once in my life waited for my brain, I said, you know most kidnappers don't lead with plantain. You're really going to confuse the statistics. Something moved in his face. Not quite a smile. But something in the territory of one. Like a smile was considering applying for a visa and hadn't been approved yet. Eat, he said. Then come to the main room. We talk. He turned to leave. J1, I called. He stopped. And I noticed the way his shoulders reacted to his name in my mouth. The slight adjustment. The almost imperceptible pause. Thank you, I said. For the plantain. He didn't turn around. Do not thank me yet, he said. And walked away. I stood there with my breakfast tray and felt something dangerous begin. Something that had no business starting in a penthouse in Seoul between a Ghanaian girl and a Korean crime lord. I felt curious. And for a woman in my situation, curiosity was far more terrifying than fear. The talk happened an hour later in a sitting room that looked like a museum someone had decided to live in. Floor-to-ceiling art. A view of Seoul that made your heart quiet down by force. He sat across from me. No desk between us. Just space, and the very charged air that happened to live in it. He told me the truth. All of it. My uncle's debt. The arrangement. The 2 million. The fact that according to the contract my uncle had signed, I was to remain in this penthouse under his protection for 1 year. 1 year. I listened to all of it without speaking, which, if you know anything about me, was the hardest thing I have ever done in my life. When he finished, I said, so let me understand. My uncle sold me. You bought me. But you are telling me you have no intention of using me. Correct. Then why, I said slowly, did you pay $2 million for a woman you plan to do absolutely nothing with? And for the first time, the very first time, Kwon Jae-won looked away from me. Just for a second. Just long enough for me to see something underneath the stone. Because, he said quietly, the alternative buyer was not someone I would allow near you. The room went completely still. My heart did something it had no permission to do. You don't know me, I whispered. No, he agreed. But I know him. And that was enough. 3 days into my captivity, which I had officially renamed my unexpected soul experience in the interest of my own sanity, I discovered 2 things about Kwon Jae-won. 1. The man was incapable of small talk. 2. He watched me when he thought I wasn't looking. Not in a creepy way. Not in the way I'd been afraid of. In the way you watch something you're trying to understand. Like I was a language he hadn't learned yet and he was determined to figure me out through observation alone. On day 3, I watched him watch me eat breakfast from across the kitchen island, and I set my fork down and said, if you have questions, just ask. I am an open book. Table of contents available upon request. He blinked. I was not staring. J1. I could feel your eyes on me from 6 feet away. My skin literally reported it to my brain. That almost smile again. Visa pending. I was thinking, he said carefully, that you are not what I expected. What did you expect? A pause. Fear. I looked at him. Oh, I was terrified. Day one I was absolutely terrified. But I've decided terror is exhausting and I don't have the energy to maintain it. So I'm choosing chaos instead. It's more fun for everyone. This time, the smile got its visa. It was small. One corner of his mouth. Barely there. But I saw it. And I felt it in my entire chest like a bell had been struck. That afternoon he told me we were going out. Out. I repeated. You have been inside for 3 days. It is not, he paused, choosing words carefully. It is not what I want for you. What do you want from me? He looked at me steadily. For you to be comfortable. I should not have felt warm at that. I felt warm at that. They dressed me, or rather, a stylist appeared with options and I spent 45 minutes arguing that I didn't need a $60,000 outfit to eat food, only to end up in a deep green silk dress that made me look like I had been specifically created by God to wear it, and I hated that I loved it. J1 was waiting in the foyer when I came down. He was in all black. No tie. Top button open. Looking like the answer to questions I hadn't been smart enough to ask yet. He saw me. And for 3 full seconds, Kwon J1, the man made of stone and silence, forgot to have a neutral expression. His eyes traveled from my face to the dress and back. Something moved through them that he shut down immediately, like a door being firmly closed. But I saw it. And I stored it carefully in my heart like evidence. You look, he started. Expensive. I offered. Because I am wearing your credit card, so technically speaking. Beautiful, he said quietly, cutting right through my joke. Leaving me with absolutely nowhere to go. I cleared my throat. Right. Well. Let's go then. He took me to a rooftop restaurant in Gangnam that wasn't on any public list, where the chef came out personally and J1 ordered for both of us in Korean and then translated every single dish to me with more patience than I deserved because I interrupted him 6 times with questions. What is that one? Galbi. Short ribs, marinated in. Does it taste like the Ghanaian version? Because we also do ribs but we don't play with them. I do not know the Ghanaian version. Then you haven't lived. Tell me about it. I stopped. He was looking at me with genuine interest. Like he actually wanted to know. Like the question wasn't filler. It was a door he was opening and waiting to see if I'd walk through. So I did. I told him about my mother's kitchen. About the smell of groundnut soup on a Sunday. About the way my father used to sing off-key while she cooked and she'd pretend to be annoyed and secretly love every second. About Accra at night, which was loud and bright and alive in a way that made your blood move differently. J1 listened to every word. He didn't check his phone once. He didn't look away. And when I finally stopped talking, slightly embarrassed by how much I'd said, he was quiet for a moment and then he said, my mother cooked too. Before a pause. She made doenjang jjigae every Sunday. The smell still does something to me I cannot explain. Before she what? I asked softly. He looked down at his glass. She died when I was 11. The whole table got quieter somehow. I'm sorry, I said. And I meant it with everything. He nodded once. Then looked up. Your mother, she is still living? Yes, I said. And she has absolutely no idea where I am, which is a problem I need to solve very soon, just so you know. Something urgent crossed his face. You haven't contacted her? I didn't have a phone, J1. He reached into his jacket immediately and produced a brand new phone, already set up, and slid it across the table. Call her, he said. I stared at the phone. Then at him. Just like that. You should not have gone 3 days without speaking to your mother, he said, and something in his voice told me this was personal, that somewhere inside this man, an 11-year-old boy was making this decision. I picked up the phone. And when my mother's voice came through the line, shocked and crying and calling my name, I had to look away from J1 because the expression on his face in that moment was something too private to witness. It was grief. And it was longing. And it was the first crack in the wall. On the way back to the penthouse, walking through a quiet side street while his security team kept a discreet distance, our hands brushed. Once. Neither of us moved away. And for half a block, the back of my hand pressed lightly against the back of his, and we both pretended it wasn't happening, and it was the most intimate thing that had ever happened to me in my life. Day 8. I had learned 3 things about Kwon Jae-won by day 8. 1. He woke up at 5 a.m. every day and stood on the balcony with coffee and looked at the city like he was having a conversation with it that nobody else was invited to. 2. He laughed, actually laughed, exactly once, and it happened because I slipped on the marble floor in my socks while doing a dramatic entrance into the kitchen, grabbed the counter, did a full involuntary split and announced, "I meant to do that. It's a Ghanaian greeting." The laugh came from somewhere deep and unguarded and lasted about 4 seconds, and I immediately decided I would spend the rest of my life trying to hear it again. 3. He was in more danger than he let on. I found out about number 3 at 11 p.m. on day 8 when I woke up to the sound of raised voices downstairs and came out of my room to find 3 of Jae-won's men speaking in rapid Korean, their faces tight, one of them bleeding from his arm. Jae-won was standing in the middle of it all. Jacket gone. Sleeves rolled up. A cut along his jaw that hadn't been there at dinner. He saw me at the top of the stairs. "Go back to your room, Amara." The way he said my name stopped me. Not the words, the voice underneath them. Something stretched thin. Something that was holding too much. I came down the stairs instead. "Amara." "You're bleeding," I said calmly, walking past his men like they weren't there, stopping directly in front of him. Up close, the cut was worse. "Sit down." "I am fine." Jae-won. "Sit. Down." He looked at me for a long second. The men in the room had gone very still, like they couldn't believe what they were seeing and didn't know what to do with it. He sat down. I found a first aid kit in the kitchen, 3rd cabinet. I had already memorized this entire penthouse out of survival instinct, and I came back and sat across from him and opened it without a word. "You don't have to," he started. "I know I don't have to," I said, pressing a clean cloth to his jaw. "I want to." "There's a difference. Now hold still and tell me what happened." A pause. "Rival faction," he said quietly. "It has been managed." "Managed," I repeated. "Your man over there has a hole in his arm, Jae-won." "It is not." Deep breath. "I'm not panicking. I'm just informing you that managed is doing a lot of work in that sentence." Silence. Then, quietly, "There is someone who wants something I have. Tonight was a message." I looked up at him. Our faces were very close. Close enough that I could see the exact shade of his eyes, which were darker than I'd realized, almost black in the low light, and currently fixed on me with an intensity that made the room feel smaller. "Am I the something?" I asked. "No," he said. Immediately. Firmly. "You are not involved in this. I live here. You are protected here. I give you my word." And here is the thing about Kwon Jae-won's word. I had known this man for 8 days. 8. But somewhere in those 8 days, between the breakfast tray and the rooftop dinner and the phone and the half a block of pretending our hands weren't touching, I had learned that this man's word was the one currency he never counterfeited. "Okay," I said softly. He blinked. "That is all? Okay." "I believe you," I said simply, and pressed the cloth a little gentler against his jaw. "Does this hurt?" "No," he said, but his jaw tightened. "Liar." "It is manageable." There's that word again. I shook my head. "You're going to be fine. The cut isn't deep enough to need stitches. Just keep pressure on it." I started to move back. His hand came up and wrapped, carefully, like I was something breakable, around my wrist. Not stopping me. Not holding me. Just there. Warm and steady against my pulse point. "Amara." My name in his mouth was doing something medically inadvisable to my heart rate. "Why are you not afraid of me?" I looked at him. At this man who ran a criminal empire and had enemies who sent armed messages in the night and had a cut on his jaw and exhaustion in his eyes that I don't think he let anyone see, ever. "Because," I said carefully, "I think the most frightening thing about you is how hard you're trying to be frightening." The silence that followed was long. His thumb moved, just once, across my wrist. Almost unconsciously. Like he didn't fully realize he was doing it. "You see too much," he said quietly. "I know," I said. "It's my worst quality." He looked down at where his hand held my wrist. Then he let go, slowly, like it cost him something. "Get some sleep," he said. "You too," I told him. "And J1? Put ice on that. I didn't do all that work for you to swell up by morning." I was halfway up the stairs when I heard it. Low. Under his breath. In Korean. I didn't speak Korean yet. But later, weeks later, when I did, and I turned over every memory searching for that sound, I found the translation. "You are going to be the end of me." Day 14. 2 weeks. I had been in Seoul for 2 weeks, and here is what my life looked like now, which was frankly embarrassing when I sat down and examined it. I woke up at 5:30 every morning because my body had learned, without my permission, to wake up 30 minutes after J1 did. I would lie there knowing he was on that balcony. Knowing exactly how he was standing. One hand on the railing. Coffee in the other. Looking at the city. I lasted until day 12 before I stopped fighting it. On day 12, I made 2 cups of coffee and walked out onto the balcony and handed him one and didn't say anything, and we stood there together watching Seoul wake up for 40 minutes in complete silence that felt more comfortable than most conversations I'd had in my entire life. He didn't comment on it. The next morning, 2 cups were already made when I got there. I am not going to tell you what that did to my chest. I refuse. What I will tell you is that on day 14, J1 told me we had a problem. "Someone saw you at the restaurant," he said over breakfast. "They know you're here." I set down my fork. What does that mean? It means we need to be seen together. Publicly. He paused, choosing the word carefully. A choice. I blinked. "You want people to think I'm here because I want to be? I want people to believe you are under my protection. Willingly." His eyes met mine steadily. "It makes you safer. It tells every faction, every enemy, that you are not a leverage point. You are. Your woman." I said flatly. He held my gaze. "My person," he said. "If you are willing." My heart did the full gymnastics routine. Floor exercise, beam, vault, and a triple twist. "This is the world's most chaotic situationship," I told him. "I do not know that word. Consider yourself blessed." He took me to Han River that afternoon. No security convoy. Just one car, one guard at a distance, so far he may as well have not been there, and the 2 of us walking along the river with street food in our hands like 2 completely normal people who had met in a completely normal way. I had tteokbokki for the first time and made an actual sound of joy that startled 3 nearby pigeons and caused J1 to look at me with an expression I had no choice but to describe as fond. "It's good," I informed him. "Why didn't anyone tell me it was this good? This is criminal. You are criminal. You've had access to this your whole life and you just..." "Amara." "What?" "You have red sauce on your face." I froze. He reached over, completely calm, like this was a normal thing, like his heart rate was doing absolutely nothing unusual, and with his thumb, wiped the corner of my mouth. The world stopped. I am not being dramatic. Everything went quiet. The river, the city, the pigeons I had traumatized. All of it went completely still, and it was just his thumb at the corner of my mouth and his eyes on my face, and the 2 of us standing close enough that I could see the exact moment his expression changed. He didn't move his hand away. And I didn't move away from it. "J1, I said. Very quietly. "Yes," he said. Just as quietly. "What are we doing?" A pause. His eyes dropped, just briefly, to my mouth. "I don't know yet," he admitted. And it was the most honest thing this man of carefully chosen words had ever said to me. But I find that I don't want to stop. I was going to say something. I had a whole sentence ready. It was probably going to be something witty that would have ruined the moment because that is what I do when I'm scared. I make jokes as shields. But before I could say it, his phone rang. He closed his eyes. 1 second. Just 1 second of him standing there with his thumb still at the corner of my mouth and his eyes closed and his jaw tight. like he was choosing, deliberately, to stay in this moment for one more breath before the world took it. Then he stepped back, answered it. And I watched his face go from something soft and open and terrifyingly human, to nothing. Stone. The mask. The boss. He spoke in Korean for 40 seconds. Then lowered the phone. I need to go back, he said. Okay, I said. My voice was steadier than I felt. We walked back to the car in silence. But this time, his hand found mine. Not by accident. Not a brush. He reached over and held my hand the entire way back, fingers laced through mine like it was a decision he had made and was not taking back, and he didn't look at me once, but his grip was firm and warm and certain. And I let him. We got back to the penthouse. He walked me to my door, which he had never done before. We stood in the doorway. He looked at me. I looked at him. And then, with his free hand, he reached up and tucked a lock of my hair gently behind my ear. His fingers grazed my cheek. Stayed there one moment longer than accidental. His face was so close. His eyes were on mine. And I thought, he is going to kiss me. He is finally going to. His phone rang again. The word I said was not appropriate for this platform. Jae-won actually almost smiled, and then his whole body changed. He took the call. 3 words in Korean. Then he looked at me with something urgent in his face. Stay in your room tonight, he said. Lock the door. Jae-won. Please, Amara. He had never said please before. I nodded. He turned to go. Hey, I called. He looked back. We're finishing that conversation, I told him. Whatever just almost happened in that doorway, we are not letting that die. I want you to know that. Something moved through his entire face. Real. Unguarded. Terrifying in how much it meant. I know, he said softly. Neither am I. And then he was gone. I stood in my doorway. Pressed my back against the door. Put my hand over my heart. And felt it absolutely pounding. And that was the moment I admitted to myself, in the quiet of a penthouse in Seoul, 2 weeks after being sold by the one person who was supposed to protect me, that I was falling. Falling fast. Falling hard. For the most dangerous man I had ever met. Who was currently walking into something I didn't understand, with enemies I didn't know, and a phone call that had made his eyes go cold in a way that frightened me for the first time. Not frightened of him. Frightened for him. And outside, somewhere in the Seoul night, a black car was parked. And the man inside it was watching our window. And he was not alone. If you made it to the end of this video, I need you to do 3 things right now. Subscribe. Because part 2 is coming, and if you miss it, that is entirely your own fault. Like this video. Prove my mother wrong. She said this video cannot reach 10,000 views and 1,000 subscribers. Show her what this community does. And comment below. Tell me where in the world you are watching from. Europe? Ghana? Kenya? South Africa? Korea? UK? USA? Canada? Drop your location right now. I want to see how far Amara and Jae-won have traveled. Amara is falling. Jae-won is hiding something. And someone is watching that window. Part 2 will change everything. See you there.